Hey math fans, in this video I'm going to talk to you about inequality and interval notation. Basically you use interval and inequality notation when you're discussing domain and range, and you discuss domain and range for just about every function type, and it's one of those things that actually sticks around in your other math classes, so this is one thing worth remembering. To recap what the domain and range is, domain is a collection of all the x values or all the input values, and the range is a collection of all the y values or all the output values. Okay, so now let's just go over how we're going to read inequality notation. So this is the domain of some random function, and it's saying x is in between 10 and -6, but x can't touch -6. But really you just read it as x is greater than 6 but less than or equal to 10. As you can see, it's kind of sandwiched in there, so you would kind of isolate them when you're reading it. Now, for interval notation, instead of saying all that, you just have to say -6, 1. The important detail, though, is this parentheses and this bracket. So what does the parenthesis and what does the bracket mean? Well, brackets mean you can touch. Alright? What I mean by can touch is you can touch that value. I can plug in 10 for x, because 10 is less than or equal to 10. I cannot plug in -6 for x, because -6 is not greater than -6. Okay? So you could get extremely close. I could do -5.9999, but I can't do -6. Alright? So that's what the bracket means. It means it can touch it. Okay? It can include it in the domain. Other ways you might see it, if you're looking at a number line, you'll see a closed dot. Alright? And then, of course, the underlined symbols, which I was just discussing in this example. The underlined inequality symbols, that means you can touch it. So, what means you can't touch? Open circles, non-underlined inequality symbols, infinity symbols. If you're not aware, these are infinity symbols. Negative infinity or positive infinity. Infinity is more of a concept rather than an actual number. Infinity just means the numbers go on forever. So there's not a number called forever. So that's why you can never touch infinity. And then anything written in parentheses means you can't touch it. Okay? So just to recap one more time, that -6 is in parentheses and that 10 is in a bracket. And that should be a 10, shouldn't it? But it says 1. That's a fun little typo. Yeah, glad I discovered that now. Anyway, union symbol. You might see the union symbol. No, you will see it. But the union symbol simply means or, and or is an inclusive statement. So you use the union symbol for graphs that have a break in them. And by what I mean by have a break in them is, the perfect example is to tell you, like, give you a function 1 divided by x. You can divide by any number out there except for 0. So that's going to cause a break in your graph, okay? And so what that happens is it'll split up your domain, and possibly your range. So it's basically saying here that you can go from -5 and down forever, and then you'll start again at 4 and then go up forever. Alright, and so if you were to write it, you just write x is less than or equal to -5. You don't have to put it in between. You don't have to put like -5 here and then negative infinity there. You would just have to say it's going down forever, so that's less than or equal to -5. And then to say if it's going up forever, you'd say greater than or equal to 4. Okay, so let's do a few examples. Okay, So here I have a number line graph. Okay, this is a one-dimensional thing. So you have two solid dots going from -2 to 4. So how would I write that in an inequality? Well, since the dots are solid, I'm going to use underline symbols. So x always goes in the middle, unless it's an or statement like that, right here. But, okay, let's get back to this. So, yeah, put x in the middle, put your inequality symbols. They're always going to be, like, oriented as less than, okay? But if you were to just, cut this part off and read it the other way around, it would be like x is greater than that number. So, anyway, we have our less than symbols. And then what were the numbers again? -2 and 4. So that would be my inequality answer. My interval notation, I'm going to use brackets because you can touch it. And I just put -2, comma, 4. So the bracket thing might be a little confusing because you're used to writing points in parentheses. And so it's all about context here. If I'm asking you for the domain or the range and you use parentheses, I know what you mean. Okay, I know you don't mean a single point. Okay, but other than that, outside of that context, then the parentheses, yeah, it does just kind of go back to you're talking out about a point, right? So I don't know if that clears up any confusion there. Okay, you go from 175, and look, the arrow shaded in, so you're going down forever. So I'm just going to say that x is going to be less than 175, and it was an open circle, so I won't fill that in. I won't underline the symbol. And so how do I write that in inequality? What symbolizes going down forever? That's negative infinity. What's your maximum value? 175. So you want to write these with the smallest number here and the largest number there, okay? So don't write 175 comma negative infinity because that's technically writing it backwards, okay? Now, okay, this is the exact same as the example from the top. I should have changed the numbers, but it really doesn't matter. Write this in interval notation. Okay. -6, 10. Alright. And then write this in interval notation. X is greater than 7. So 7 is the smallest number. Every number greater than 7 forever is infinity. And they're both in parentheses. Okay, and then see how it says sketch a graph? Well, we just have one dimension here, so it's a number line graph. So, throw 0 somewhere in the middle. This is really all I do. You can take the time and put out a bunch of tick marks. I feel like the same thing's communicated when you draw your own, and since -6 was in a parenthesis, it was a bad looking parenthesis, I'll put an open circle here, and then I'll put a closed circle there, and then x is in between that, so I'll shade it in there, and that's good enough for me. Let's graph this going from 7 onward, so I'll throw a 0 there, and then I throw 7 here, and 7 was not filled in, so I'll do an open circle. And there we go. Shading forever. So, that's basically it for the graph. Now, this next section, translate the following statements into inequality notation and interval notation and sketch a graph. Alright, the real numbers between -3 and 43. So, the real numbers between -3 and 43. It didn't say anything like greater than -3 and less than 43, so you're going to assume they're included. So I'm just going to go with -3 and 43, and then I'll shade in. Okay. So inequality, I'll say -3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 43. Again, because it didn't say anything like less than -3 or greater than -3, but less than 43. It just said between -3 and 43. So that's why you're assuming it's filled in. So the interval, -3 in a bracket and 43 in a bracket. All right. Last example. The set of all integers greater than 10 and less than 80. Or the set of all integers greater than or equal to 100. So we have that word or, which means we're going to have a union in our answer. Okay, so let's do that interval equation, interval answer first. Set of all integers greater than 10 and less than 80. So how would I say greater than 10, less than 80? Well, it didn't say greater than or equal to, so I'm going to do parentheses. And it didn't say less than or equal to 80. So that's also in parentheses. All right, so that's the first one, and then I'm going to do the union. So the union is pretty much only used for the interval notation, and use the word or for the inequality notation. Or the set of all integers greater than or equal to 100. So greater than or equal to 100 means I'll start at 100, and I'll put it in a bracket because of the or equal to, and then I'll go on forever, and I'll parentheses that. So that's the interval notation. What does the inequality notation look like? You're going from 10 to 80. So like that. Or x is greater than or equal to 100. Okay? So I mean that's basically it for this. Greater than 10, less than 80, or the set of all integers greater than or equal to 100. So that's what that looks like in inequality notation. So our graph means we'll have a split in our graph. So I'll have like 10 over here and open circle that. And then I'll have like 80 over here and I'll open circle that. And that's shaded in there. It's everything in between 10 and 80. And then it'll start again at 100. And I'll close circle that. And then it'll go on forever. Okay? So that's basically it. Okay? You're just going to be required to know the two types of forms, inequality and interval notation, and then just know how to sketch a number line graph, okay? And that's, yeah, like I said, that's it for interval notation and inequality notation. Goodbye, everybody.